I paid their mortgage for 2 years, then heard them call me their ATM machine. So I let the bank take their house and exposed them to the whole family. I, 32M, never thought that a simple and ordinary phone call would end up tearing apart over 20 years of what I believed were strong family relationships. But that is exactly what happened. Around 3 months ago, I made what I believed was a routine call to my aunt to discuss plans for my cousin's upcoming birthday party. I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. I thought it would just be a quick conversation about food, guests, and timing. Little did I know that this call would accidentally let me hear something that would change my view of my family forever. Earlier that day, my aunt had called me first, asking if she should bring food or help out in any way for the party. I told her not to worry about it because I would handle the catering. It wasn't something new for me. I was usually the one covering costs for family gatherings, whether it was parties, dinners, or other events. It was my way of giving back and making sure everyone could enjoy the occasion without financial stress. We went over the details, and after sorting everything out, I thought the call was finished. I said goodbye. She said goodbye, and I put my phone down. Or at least I thought she hung up. But a few seconds later, her voice came through the phone again, clear as day. She was talking to someone else in the room, and her tone was completely different from the polite, thankful one she had used with me just moments ago. "He's being his usual controlling self," she said, "always insisting on paying for everything just so he can feel important." My heart sank, and then I heard my uncle's voice joining in without missing a beat. "Yeah," he said. "He acts like he's some big shot just because he helps us out financially sometimes." The part that truly stung was when my cousin jumped into the conversation, mocking my voice, saying I probably kept a spreadsheet of every dollar I ever spent on them, like I was some kind of accountant tracking their every move. They all burst out laughing, as if it were the funniest thing in the world. Then my aunt said something that hit me even harder. She claimed I thought paying their mortgage made me the head of the family. My uncle added that I was probably just lonely and trying to buy their affection. For the next 10 minutes, I sat there in my car, my phone still to my ear, listening to the people I considered my closest family members tear me down behind my back. They went through every generous thing I had ever done, covering bills, helping with repairs, buying food, and twisted each one into proof that I was desperate for control or validation. These weren't strangers. These weren't casual acquaintances. These were the same people who just months earlier had been calling me their savior when they were facing foreclosure. The same people who had hugged me with tears in their eyes when I offered to pay their mortgage so they could keep their home. 2 years ago, my uncle lost his job due to company downsizing. My aunt worked part-time at a local clinic, but it wasn't enough to cover their bills. They had 3 kids, including my cousin who was still in college. When they called me crying, saying they might lose the house they had lived in for 15 years, I didn't think twice. I had been lucky in my career. I worked for a tech startup that went public, I made smart investments, and I lived modestly. Helping them just felt like the right thing to do. I offered to cover their mortgage until my uncle found steady work again. At that time, I truly believed I was doing something good for my family. But sitting in my car that day, hearing their words, it became painfully clear that they didn't see it as generosity. They saw it as a weakness. They thought I was a pathetic man trying to buy my place in their lives. And in that moment, I realized this probably wasn't the first time they had talked about me like this. That evening, I went home feeling like I had been hit by a truck. I pulled out every document I had that showed my financial help to them. Bank statements, transfer records, and payment confirmations. Over the past 2 years, I had paid nearly $47,000 toward their mortgage alone. On top of that, I had covered my cousin's textbooks, paid for their car repairs, and picked up the bill for countless family dinners and events. I sat there in my living room, looking at the numbers, wondering how many times they had laughed about me while cashing my transfers. For the next few days, I considered marching over to their house and confronting them right away. But then I decided that I wanted to see if they would continue acting the same way around me now that I knew the truth. The answer came sooner than I expected, at my cousin's birthday party the very next weekend. When I arrived, everyone was all smiles. My aunt went out of her way to introduce me to neighbors as her generous nephew who always took such good care of the family. My uncle patted me on the back and told anyone who would listen how lucky they were to have me. My cousin thanked me over and over for paying for the catering. On the surface, it was sweet, but knowing what I knew, every smile and compliment felt hollow, nothing more than an act. That's when I started planning. For the next 2 months, I kept paying their mortgage exactly as before. I didn't want to raise any suspicions. In the background, I collected more evidence. I recorded our conversations, which was legal in my state, and gathered every piece of proof that showed my financial support. I was determined that if this ever came to a confrontation, I wouldn't just have my word against theirs. It didn't take long to catch them again. During one of our usual check-in calls, my aunt once more forgot to hang up. This time, she was talking to a neighbor, laughing about how I was basically their personal ATM machine, who never questioned a single expense. She even said I was probably just grateful to have people pretend to care about me. Hearing that was the final straw. The mortgage was due on the 15th of each month. Normally, I sent the payment a few days early to avoid any issues. But this time, I let the due date pass without sending a penny. On the 16th, my uncle called asking if I had forgotten. I told him I had been busy at work and would take care of it soon. 3 days later, my aunt called with a sharper tone, reminding me that late fees would start piling up. I gave her the same story about being busy. By the 25th, they were clearly panicking. By the end of the month, they got a notice from the bank about the missed payment, and my cousin called me directly, something he hadn't done in months. I told him I was having temporary cash flow problems, which was a lie. In reality, I had already consulted a lawyer who confirmed I had no legal obligation to continue paying. I had been helping out of choice, and now I was choosing to stop. By the middle of the following month, with 2 missed payments on record, my uncle called again. This time, there was no small talk. He demanded to know when I would be sending the money. When I told him I was reevaluating my financial commitments, his tone changed instantly, from demanding to begging. He reminded me of all the times they had been there for me, painting a very different picture than the one I had heard on those recordings. The next day, my aunt called using a different strategy: guilt. She reminded me that my uncle had helped me move into my first apartment years ago. She said they had always treated me like a son. She tried to rewrite history, making it sound like we had a balanced relationship of mutual support, when the truth was that I had been carrying them financially for 2 years. I decided it was time for the truth to come out. My aunt called an emergency family meeting to discuss their financial crisis. Nearly the entire extended family showed up. My uncle stood and gave a speech about how disappointed he was in me for abandoning them when they needed me most. My aunt claimed they had never asked me to pay the mortgage in the first place, saying I had forced the arrangement on them and was now heartlessly pulling the rug out from under them. My cousin even spoke up, pretending to be hurt and confused. When they finished, I slowly pulled out my phone. I said, "I think everyone should hear something." Then I played the first recording, the one where they mocked me, saying I thought paying the mortgage made me important, laughing about my supposed spreadsheet of expenses. The room fell completely silent. My aunt's face went pale. My uncle stared at the floor. My cousin looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Then I played the second recording, the one where my aunt called me their personal ATM machine and said I was just happy to have people pretend to care about me. Gasps went around the room. My grandmother was the first to speak, asking how they could possibly say such things about someone who saved their home. Other relatives joined in, expressing shock and disgust. My aunt tried to claim the recordings were taken out of context. My uncle said everyone vents sometimes, but the damage was done. Everyone knew exactly how they felt about me. I stood up and said, "For 2 years I helped you because I believed family should support each other. I didn't ask for gratitude, but I also didn't expect to be mocked. From this moment on, I will no longer be paying your mortgage or covering any expenses. I wish you well, but I'm done." And just like that, I walked away from that meeting knowing my relationship with them would never be the same.